Hello, good evening. Welcome. This is Hot Edition. We're live on news. I'm here at Desawe Kanda, also live on Kesme 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're live on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. Coming up this evening, Child Rights International estimates more than 10,000 children have been affected by the spillage of the Akonsombo Dam across 80 communities. That is, urges government agencies to pay particular attention to children affected by the flooding of excess water as a result of what's been happening over the last 7 days. Stay with us here on Hot Edition with updates on this rather unfortunate situation. Also, government is promising swift response to addressing the humanitarian crisis as a result of the spillage of the excess water from the Akonsombo Dam. The Ghana Medical Association is also saying that its personnel is on standby to support the efforts. They have further demands. Stay with us. We'll connect with them here on Hot Edition. Also, the National Democratic Congress, NDC, describes Attorney General's advice on Professor Kwabena Frimpong-Boateng's report on Galamsey as a sinister move to cover up for government officials cited for the illicit activity. The opposition party is demanding the Attorney General's immediate resignation on this matter.
Advise that the said report lacks evidence to ground any prosecution. A sinister agenda of Godfrey Dame to downplay and cover up the damning Galamsey report and the revelations therein was manifestly clear right from the outset.
We have details shortly here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Plus the latest in business, sports and entertainment coming up for the next 60 minutes. I am Alfred Ocansey. Welcome. Let's get into the details now. The 13-member interministerial committee set up by government to coordinate relief for victims of the dam spillage has visited Mepe in what is a first major step in helping the thousands who are currently suffering. The committee took lead ahead of the expected visit by President Akufo-Addo to the area to assess for himself the extent of damage caused and what sort of help can be offered in the interim to the affected persons. The Volta River Authority, meanwhile, says it has no intention of increasing the volume of spillage. Edward Ocansey is Deputy CEO of the Volta River Authority.
So we are left with 0.21 to achieve that maximum allowable operation level of the dam, which means that beyond this level, if you stay there for a very long time, the integrity of the dam is at risk. And we don't want to do anything that will affect the integrity of the dam. But as we see with this data that we have and what we are seeing, we know that per everything that we are doing, we don't envisage to increase the spillage. Because increasing the spillage is also not going to bring any good news to the people beyond Soga Kope. Increasing the spillage by even 1 foot may end up wiping that bridge away. We don't want that to happen. So we are doing everything in our power to make sure that we save the dam and save the communities downstream, at least not to bring in more hardship to the people. That is what we are doing. So per projection, I'm sure more hardship to the people. That is what we are doing. So per projection, I'm sure we'll get to a better condition going forward.
Okay, so that the Deputy CEO of the Volta River Authority there, Edward Ocansey there. Let's go straight to the community where my colleague Joseph Armstrong Gold-Alogbe is still in the area. He's joined me on the telephone. Now, Joseph, so the ministerial committee visited the area earlier in the day, that's Mepe specifically. But beyond Mepe, have they visited any other communities? Hello, beyond Mepe that this interministerial committee visited earlier today, have they visited other communities affected by the spillage?
Alfred, see again.
Joseph, if you can move away from the noise so you can hear me clearly.
Okay, go ahead, I'm listening.
Okay, I'm asking if the interministerial committee has visited other places apart from the Mepe where they were earlier.
Alfred, we were brought to the Mepe by the interministerial committee over here. We spoke with the affected residents here at Jose, and that was it. I'm not sure whether they went to that place. Currently, the president speaking, we can pick his sound bite and then we can talk about it.
Great. Let's hear them, President. Unfortunately, we're unable to hear quite audibly what the president's been talking about there. Now, we understand that President Akufo-Addo has arrived in the area, and as was earlier announced, to assess for himself the extent of impact of this spillage of excess water from the Akonsombo Dam. My colleague Joseph Armstrong is in the area. We'll reconnect with him shortly, but we understand the president is also addressing the gathering there to have a clear understanding of what has been the situation over the period. But let's stay a bit further with issues of the impact of this spillage on the communities there. That's Child Rights Group, Child Rights International, is urging key government agencies working to bring relief to communities affected by the spillage of the Akonsombo Dam to pay attention to children. Now, the group is concerned about possible outbreak of diseases and other related conditions since many have been rendered homeless. It estimates around 10,896 children have been affected across the 80 communities in 7 districts. The flooding has severely disrupted essential services like clean water, electricity, education, health, shelter, and food, with children being the most severely affected. Bright Apia is the Executive Director for Child Rights International.
We feel that there's a need for us to quickly move in to see how best we can deal with the issue, and then also be able to know the number of children that have been affected by the situation, which we did. And again, we realized that children have seriously been affected by the situation, especially in the sense that they've been cut off from accessing certain facilities that would enhance their development, especially most of the schools have been closed down and also been affected. Health issues are not properly in shape, and then also how they eat and all that, you know. So this raises a whole lot of issues as to whether children are safe in that particular situation, and the protective system are also not strong. So it calls for a lot of things for us to see how we can deal with that. Because if we have a number, almost about 10,896 children being affected by the situation, then you can imagine the scale.
Well, so let's stay a bit further with Bright Apia. He's joined me on the telephone. He's the Executive Director of the Child Rights International. They've issued this concern statement about the number of children affected by the spillage of excess water from the Akonsombo Dam. We understand some 80 communities have been affected so far in 7 districts as a result of the spillage of excess water from the dam. And Bright Apia is connected with that. Mr. Apia, thank you so much for joining us here on Hot Edition. So, what information have you gathered so far in terms of how the children, which you estimate to be about 10,896, how are they coping with this situation now?
Well, I can say it's not a sight to behold. The condition of the children in that area, it's an emergency one, and we need to treat it aside. And I would also consider it as a national security, because one, if there is any outbreak of disease, the effect will be so high on us as a country to accommodate. There are issues of also a trauma and some psychological effect that is having effect on the children. So clearly, you look at it from that angle, and you would underestimate that. And then the issue of the physical environment that they also live in. Some of them have been put in classrooms and schools and other places that are accommodating them. And where you see adults and children all together in an environment that is you can only see when it is an issue of war-related event and all that. I don't think that it is something that we need to take for granted. And the figures that we are giving you, these are exact figures that we were able to get since Saturday. So there are some places that we couldn't reach because of the nature of it and then the conditions surrounding it. So we couldn't go there. So these numbers I've given to you is the list of the number that we've got in relation to the state of children in that area.
I see. So we understand so far this a 30-member interministerial committee that has been put together to assess the situation. I don't see the Minister of Gender, Children and Social Protection in there as part of the 13. So what, in your view, should be the immediate considerations, especially for these children who are affected in many ways as a result of what's happening in these 80 communities, as you've observed?
I think that is an error not to have the Minister of Gender and Social Protection on that committee. And I don't know whether the Employment Minister is also part of that, because they also deal with social issues and all that. But for me, it tells you the kind of terms of reference that have been given to the committee to look at it holistically, without necessarily looking at or measuring the vulnerability levels of the situation to be able to prescribe the needed support and the system that they have to put in place. So if you are looking at it, and Ocansey, when we went, we realized that there's no kinds of segregation in terms of how issues need to be tackled. They just tackling issues on a wholesale basis. So you don't see the need to protect maybe a pregnant woman. You don't see the urgency in protecting a pregnant woman. You don't see the urgency in protecting children. But you see that general urgency of protecting everybody. But with situations like that, you see that the vulnerability levels are different. And it's reflecting in the establishment of the committee. And for me, it shows that we are not really paying attention to certain things. What has happened is a social issue right from the beginning. I think that planning was poor. We know the various things that happened during that time. So we could have put in certain measures to be able to avert some of the effect that we are seeing now. So right from the beginning, things went wrong. And we expect that within our social protection safety net, we'll be able to handle things the way we should. But if you look at the event unfolding, it clearly shows that we've not thought of having some kind of segregation to be able to measure the vulnerability levels to help us design the kind of intervention that we have to give. And for us, children are very important, and every services is cut off from children. And I think that if they really want to do justice to issues relating to matters of this nature, it should be represented enough so that people's expertise can also be brought to bear in terms of how they want to deal with this particular issue. But it shows how, as a nation, we want to put every social issue into one basket and then decide what we want to do with it. But if you are able to look at it from the point of view that we need to measure and be specific about the vulnerability levels, we will be able to tackle this issue and tackle it well.
Now, it's a very, very important point you make about disaggregating the vulnerability levels and also the specific measures to be put in place in there. Now, these children are not going to school. In fact, at least for the past 7 days, so they've not been to school. So they are losing contact hours. Exactly. What should be the consideration? Because I also see that in the list, I don't see the education minister there as well. So, there you have it.
That is the problem, because there have been properties of Ghana Education Service that have been lost as a result of this. So clearly, you can't not just look at it. That's what I'm saying, that from the beginning, things went wrong. Otherwise, if you consider all these and you don't only look at it, that it's a disaster. In the life of people are involved, and all these people also belong to, they have different needs, and we must address it from that angle. This is the thing that you will see. But they've lost their properties. They've lost the environment where they train children. Clinics has also been closed down and all that. And even mobility is a problem for children, and some disabled persons in the community and all that. So we need to clearly look at it. For me, if there's a need for them to reform and look at it from purely a social point of view and design certain programs that will meet the needs of the people there, we will solve it faster than the way we are currently looking at it.
Zapia, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right up here as the director of the Child Rights International, and they're raising fundamental concerns about how this spillage of excess water from the Akonsombo Dam has affected close to 11,000 children. In fact, the statement they put out earlier estimates around 10,896 children have been affected across 80 communities in 7 districts as a result of the spillage of the excess water from the Akonsombo Dam. Now, they are not alone in the issues related to some of the ministries that should have been part of the 13-member committee established by the government to look into the spillage of the Akonsombo Dam. The Ghana Medical Association are going to be joined by the acting general secretary shortly, because they have raised concerns about why the health minister is not also part of this 13-member committee. Now, as earlier announced, the 13-member committee chaired by the chief of staff, Akosia Fremont Parry, comprises key government officials responsible for the various sectors. We're talking about the Minister for National Security, Albert Kandapa, the Minister for the Interior, Ambrose Derry, that's number 2, the Defense Minister, Dominic Nito, is the 3rd Minister, Energy Minister, Dr. Matthew Poku Prempe, and Finance Minister, Kenneth Furiata, make up the first 5, and the Minister for Local Government, Daniel Kwekubochi. These are the first 6, and then additional members of the committee are the Minister for Works and Housing, Francis Asesubuachi, Minister for Roads and Highways, Kwesi Makwata, Minister for Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation, Dr. Kwekwe Free, the Minister for Sanitation, Frida Prempe, and Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Abujenapo, and the Minister for Information, Kojo Ponkroma. So, as you heard Bright Appear there, we don't see the Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection in there. He raised concerns about it. The Minister of Education, and then the Ghana Medical Association also raising concerns why the Minister for Health is not part of this 13-member committee. So we'll get into all of that shortly. But let's go back to the community where Joseph Armstrong Goldalogbe, my colleague, is following the president. We lost him. We tried to raise him back on the telephone. Joseph Armstrong Goldalogbe is with President Akufo-Addo and the members of this 13-member committee who are touring some of these areas affected by the spillage of the Akonsombo Dam excess water. As we're learning now, according to the Ghana Navy, as earlier indicated, they said they've been able to rescue some 8,000 people from the flood-stricken areas as a result of the destructive spillage from the Akonsombo Dam. Commodore E.A. Kwafo from the Naval Training Command, during an update on the floods at Mepe in the Volta region, said the combined rescue team deployed to affected districts is currently monitoring critical infrastructure and responding to distress calls in order to neutralize the effect of the damage caused by the spillage. So the Navy says they've been able to rescue 8,000 people from these areas. Now, Joseph, what exactly did the president say?
Alfred, I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
It's better.
I was asking exactly what the president said earlier when you were with him.
Alfred, so one thing the president said is that move the crowd is the fact that he wants to support.
Joseph, if you can be stable, we're losing you. Hello?
Alfred, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so the president is saying that if he wants to go by the name of voting from the voter region, this place will be the last place he wants to visit, sympathize with the people here after the flood to their homes. But as president for the entire nation is here to assure them that if would have some
Joseph, we're still losing you. I don't know if are you moving? Are you in motion?
I'm not moving. I'm standing at one place, but the network here is good. Is it better now?
Okay, yes, it's better. Stay where you are and repeat what the president said again.
So the president says that after
unfortunately, the network not favoring us this evening, unfortunately. We'll try to reconnect with Joseph Armstrong Gold to get some more clarity to exactly what the president said. So stay with us here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale, also on W93.5 in Y and beyond. Now let's go straight on to the concerns raised by the Ghana Medical Association. Dr. Richard Salome is the acting general secretary of the Ghana Medical Association, is joining us. Dr. Salome, thank you so much for joining us here on Hot Edition. Now you raised concerns about why the Minister of Health is not part of this 30-member committee set up to look into the impact of this spillage from the Akonsombo Dam. Why exactly do you think that he should have been part of this 30-member committee?
Well, thank you very much, Alfred, and greetings to your listeners. First, may I take the opportunity on behalf of the National Executive Council of the Ghana Medical Association to commiserate with our countrymen and women who have suffered this unfortunate fate due to the flooding in the North, Tong, South, and Central districts, which is the most affected area. Alfred, in emergencies of this nature, even though it is flooding, there are key things that the health sector does in such an emergency situation. You note that many people have lost their homes and their properties. There are people, there's flooding, and the risk of people drowning is there. There's also the risk of outbreak of many waterborne diseases, for example, cholera, typhoid, malaria. And then we also know that the area is a schistosomiasis-prone area, what the lay people would call bilharzia. There are also people who are at risk of drowning. And then physical injuries. Again, we know that about 3 health centers or CHIPS compounds are already under the water. And then we've learned also yesterday and this early morning that Richard Novartis Hospital, or Kumboni Hospital, which is popularly called, is also being evacuated because the mortuary and parts of the hospital and its access to the hospital itself is flooded. So if you put all these things together, you realize that when such an effort is being carried out, and then the health sector, which plays a very key role, pivotal role in all of these relief efforts, both during the flooding and then after the flooding, because the waters will recede, the risk of all of these things I've mentioned will still be there for a while until the water recedes totally. Then that is a call for concern. And that is why we raise that concern about the health minister in terms of the representation of the health ministry on that committee and not being part of that committee.
I see. Unfortunately, at least with the composition of the committee now, we don't see the health minister in there. What are the possible health-related outbreaks that the other members of the committee should be looking at now?
Well, we hope that that error is corrected. But in the meantime, we know, as we have said, water that has flooded the place is carrying along various things. Remember, people's homes are flooded, many places, cemeteries, places of convenience have all been flooded, and this water is carrying a mixture of all of this around. We also know that many of the people are having some challenges, even though a lot of them are being evacuated to safe places in some schools and other places like that. So access to water has become a challenge, and that is why the risk of cholera, typhoid, and other diarrheal diseases is very high. Of course, also mosquitoes abound everywhere, and so malaria is also a big risk. Injuries, we know, wood is being carried around, various objects. Those of you who have seen the videos would notice that these were there. Beyond this is the fact that there's disruption in health services in many of these places. So those who have to attend maternity care in the ANC clinics, immunization, as well as people who may be hypertensive or diabetic, who need to visit these health centers and CHIPS compounds for their medications, have been cut off from this. And some of these people are being held at these safe places. And that is why it is important that we put in some measures to address this. And the Ghana Medical Association has decided not to wait for anybody and taken the lead to put some resources available to doctors on the ground. We are also mobilizing a number of doctors as well as other professionals we are collaborating with. And tomorrow, a lot more will be going there to mount mobile clinics and outreach teams to visit these places, assess the situation, and offer help to those who are in most need.
Very, very, very important intervention there. But with this mortuary, we understand that has also been affected by the flooding. What could be the possible outbreak that they should be considering? That's the people, the authorities in this area, taking into consideration the fact that not just the mortuary, but other places as well, like septic tanks and public places of convenience, have all been affected by the flooding.
Mm-hmm. So we are not working alone. We are liaising with the district authorities, NADMO, and others on the ground. Our divisional chairman, Dr. IPJ, has been on the ground and has been communicating with other colleagues on the ground, and then the district director and other stakeholders. In the mortuary, for example, we are aware that they have conveyed most of the bodies out to the nearby facilities, like the Sugakope District Hospital, and then also moved a lot of the staff out since the place is beginning to flood. And these people have been redeployed to other facilities to assist with the efforts in the relief. As I have mentioned, key worry is diarrheal diseases, again, as well as other diseases that I've mentioned about, like typhoid, malaria, and also we know that some of these areas have snakes that are in the area, and snake bites are quite common in that area. So people will have to look out for this. We advise that those victims be supplied with potable water so that they don't have to go out looking for these items and then compound the risk of getting either bitten, getting injured, or having to take water that is not potable. We are also mobilizing some water to be sent there tomorrow so that people can have access to this water. So these are a few things that you would have to take into consideration by the way of prevention.
Great. And I thank you so much for this intervention as well. And then also the clarity you bring to the concern you raise about the absence of the health minister on this committee. Thank you. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for the opportunity as well. And again, we share in the pain and the suffering of our people in North, Central, and South Tongue, and we are with them. And the Ghana Medical Association will continue to support them as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Richard Salome is Acting General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association. They're so live here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're live on Kesme 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. Also live on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. Now, from what we're learning so far, at least 12,000 people have been displaced following the spillage of the Akonsombo Dam. That's according to Dr. Senano Kwesi Jokoto, the Deputy Director of Health Services in the Volta region. The Volta River Authority commenced controlled water spillage from the Akonsombo and Kpon dams on September 15 due to a consistent rise in the flow pattern and water levels of the Akonsombo reservoir. Now, thousands of residents in South Tongue, North Tongue, Central Tongue, Sojaman, and several other areas have had their homes submerged due to the spillage. According to Dr. Jokoto, the Health Directorate was taking measures to ensure that these displaced persons were safe and had their pressing needs met in the interim. So that's what we're learning so far. The first immediate concern for the Volta Regional Health Directorate is to make sure that 12,000 people that have been displaced as a result of this flooding caused by the spillage of excess water from their Akonsombo Dam are safe and free from the immediate risk. So some of them are in safe havens, especially in North Tongue, which is the worst affected district in the Volta region. And they have also ensured that, first of all, the sanitary conditions in the camps are quickly improved. They've also had mobile teams available to them, which are providing psychological support, and they're also on hand to deal with any health emergencies. So that's the update to the number of persons that have been displaced as a result of this spillage. 12,000 accounted for so far. Now, away from that just a bit, the Opposition National Democratic Congress, NDC, is demanding the immediate resignation of the Attorney General, Godfrey Yeboah-Dame, over what they describe as his attempts to cover up government officials mentioned in the report of the Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining. In his 36-page report, Professor Kwabena Frimpong-Boateng, a former Minister for Environment and chair of the Interministerial Committee, had cited top NPP and government officials of being complicit in illegal mining activities in the country. However, Godfrey Yeboadame, in a legal advice to the police last week, said there was no evidence in support of the allegations, but the NDC disagrees, and they're saying there's sufficient evidence to carry out investigations and prosecution of all persons cited in the Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining report authored by Professor Kwabena Frimpong-Boateng. Speaking during the Moment of Truth series earlier today, the National Communications Officer for the NDC, Sami Jemfi, accused the Attorney General of engaging in a sinister move to cover up government officials implicated in the said report.
The foregoing facts point to one irresistible conclusion, which is that the corrupt Akufo-Addo Bawumia MPP government is neck deep in the illicit galamsey trade and will stop at nothing to cover up their complicity. The extent of official complicity in this matter is as clear as daylight. Like many environmentalists and patriotic voices, the NDC is deeply worried and appalled by the extent to which President Akufo-Addo and Vice President Alhaji Bawumia have gone to encourage and condone the destruction of Ghana's environment. They have been active promoters, collaborators, and enablers of the illicit galamsey trade. The actions through the Attorney General to continuously protect corrupt officials of the ruling MPP and the government speak loudly. Posterity will never forgive them. Indeed, as far back as 22nd April 2023, the Office of the President, in commenting on the 36-page Frimpong-Boateng Galamsey reports, stated that the report is, quote, a catalog of personal grievances, unquote, and that the claims in the reports were unfounded and amounted to, quote, hearsay. This was followed by an advice from the Attorney General, Godfrey Dame, on 11th May 2023, for the Damian Frimpong-Boateng report to be given little attention, a comment that was widely published by the media. Little wonder that the Attorney General will, in September 2023, advise that the said report lacks evidence to ground any prosecution. The sinister agenda of Godfrey Dame to downplay and cover up the Damian Galamsey report and the revelations therein was manifestly clear right from the outset. In short, the so-called advice from the Attorney General Godfrey Dame is nothing but a cover-up calculated to whitewash the incessant corruption and nation-wrecking conduct of officials of the Akufo-Addo Bawumia government and the ruling MPP.
Sami Jemfi is National Communications Officer of the opposition National Democratic Congress there. Now, a Tema High Court has set November 24 to determine whether top EC officials, including the chairperson Jen Adokwe-Mensah, should be sanctioned for proceeding with voter registration exercise. That's the limited voter registration exercise, despite the pending cases. Private citizen Ayita Precious holds the view that the Electoral Commission acted unlawfully in not suspending the limited registration despite her legal action, asking that the process should be extended beyond the district offices. Precious Ayita, a non-registered voter resident in Ochebleku near Afienya in the Greater Accra region, filed an injunction suit against the voter registration exercise from taking place in the district offices of the Electoral Commission on Friday, September 8. She explained in her writ that due to the distance of her place of residence to the closest Electoral Commission office, that's about 44.3 kilometers from the EC's district office in Pram Pram, using the Accra Flower Road, and about 37.3 kilometers using the Konsombo Accra Road, she could not afford the journey to exercise her civic right. Precious stressed that it would have been closer if the registration had been done in her electoral area. But the Electoral Commission disregarded the injunction and carried out the exercise at its district offices. The exercise began on September 11 and ended on October 2, 2023, having covered all 268 districts. In her contempt suit against the commission, Precious Aita prayed the court to commit the Electoral Commission chair and her 2 deputies to prison. Presiding Judge Patricia Kwanzaa set November 24 to determine whether the Electoral Commission chair and her 2 deputies should be sanctioned. Reindolph Chumesi Ankra, holding brief for Nick Papo Samoa Ado, who is a counsel for Precious Aita, spoke to the media.
As you are aware, was fixed for the hearing of the substantive application, which was the determination of the right, whether or not the rights of Precious Aita had been violated by the EC's plan to go ahead with the limited registration in the manner it planned to do it. And then there was also a follow-up injunction which was supposed to be taken today. But we all know that despite the filing of the processes, the intended registration went on. So the applicant followed up with a contempt of court, seeking to cite the Electoral Commission and some officers of the commission for disrespecting the court. That's what contempt essentially is about. And that was also fixed for today for hearing. But as you heard rightfully from the judge, she doesn't want to listen to oral submissions by the lawyers in court. That is part of judicial economy, managing judicial time. So she has ordered that we file whatever we wanted to say in court, we should put it in writing and file it latest by 16th November 2023. And then we'll come back to court for a ruling on the 24th of November 2023. So it's on the 24th that the court will determine whether or not the officers of the EC are guilty of contempt or otherwise. So that is essentially what happened in court today. All right, thank you very much.
So you have there the counsel for Precious Aita, but let's still stay a bit further in court. The 16 thugs affiliated with the New Patriotic Party who were arrested for invading the studios of United Television on Saturday, October 7, 2023, have been convicted and fined 2,400 cedis each by an Achimota magistrate court. The men who were charged with conspiracy to commit crime and rioting pleaded guilty to the charges and were subsequently convicted by the court. They have been slapped with a fine of 200 penalty units, which translates into 2,400 cedis each, or the risk a 3-month jail if they default. On Saturday, October 7, while the station's prime time entertainment show United Showbiz was ongoing, the thugs stormed the studios, disrupting the live program, and proceeded to threaten to assault the host and her guests. The group was reportedly upset that a panelist on the show tore into pieces a letter from the New Patriotic Party leadership to the management of the media house requesting a reform of the United Showbiz panel. Their action was swiftly condemned by the Ghana Journalists Association, the New Patriotic Party, and other well-meaning Ghanaians. Let's now go into the issues of health, where, as we speak, the persons living with HIV can heave a sigh of relief as the anticipated antiretroviral medicines, which were in short supply, has been released from the ports. According to the Ministry of Health, government has cleared the drugs and its distribution to affected facilities began in earnest today. For months, the country had dealt with the shortage of crucial antiretroviral medicines, increasing the risk of complication and health conditions for persons living with HIV. Members of the Ghana Network of Persons Living with HIV report their inability to access the antiretrovirals regimen, which is essential for viral suppression, maintain health, and reduce new infections. The shortage of the drugs left many in a state of worry, increasing demands for its immediate attention. The Ministry of Health assured of the drugs clearance for the ports by Friday, October 13, dispelling reports suggesting its refusal to give a waiver for clearance. According to the Public Relations Officer of the Ministry, Isaac Ofeba, the drugs should get to the various distribution centers across the country in the next few days.
Ghana Supply Commission, that cleared goods for the Ministry of Health. And so over the years, they've been clearing the goods for it. They clear, they supply their invoices, and then the Ministry pays them. This particular one, they came up that they need funds. They have short of funds, they need money. The Ministry give money out. The goods were in the process of clearing when that publication came out. That is why we said that by 13th, which was the last Friday, those drugs will be cleared. Truly, the drugs were cleared last Friday, and it has been moved to Imperial Health Services, where Ghana Health Service, CHAD, and other institutions that implement the administration of such drugs will contact them, and then they will be transported to their various distributions. That is where we have our cold room for storage of vaccines, and then we are able to distribute from those places to the various regions. What we do is that we hand them over to the implementing agency, which is Imperial Health Services. They take it, they collaborate with Ghana Health Service, where they have the backup cold rooms where they are going to store these medicines at a constant temperature. So we are sure that between now and within the week, the drugs will be distributed to the various hospitals, and people living with HIV can have access to those drugs. I can't give you the quantity of it, but what we know is that we have them now in abundance. As we say that by 2030, we expect to have a universal health coverage in this country. So we can't be doing at the expense of shortage of, by 2030, we expect to have a universal health coverage in this country. So we can't be doing at the expense of shortage of drugs or essential commodities that will contribute into the success of this universal health coverage. And so it is rather unfortunate that this particular incident has happened. At the round table, it was discussed and arranged so that we don't, in the likely event, find ourselves in such situations. The commodities there have been cleared, and we are doing the distributions to the various distribution centers where patients can have access.
The Ghana Health Service, which is the distribution agency, has confirmed receipt of the consignment at its cold room. So we'll be monitoring this quite closely and be updating you on the situation as it unfolds here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Also live on Kesme 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. Also on W 93.5. and beyond. Now, the Ghana Navy has disclosed that over 8,000 people have been rescued from the flood-stricken areas as a result of the destructive spillage from the Akonsombo Dam. Commodore E.A. Kwafo from the Naval Training Command, during an update on the floods at Mepe in the Voto region, said the combined rescue team deployed to the affected district is currently monitoring critical infrastructure and responding to distress calls in order to neutralize the effect of the damage caused by the spillage. President Akufo-Addo is in the area, Mepe specifically, and he's been talking to some of the affected persons, where my colleague Joseph Amson Gold Alogbe sent through this report.
When I took the oath of office as president, I took the oath of office as president of every single individual in Ghana, of all peoples in Ghana, all districts. And whether they voted for me or not, once I have taken the oath, I am the president of all the people. So, Toby, you and your elders, I want the people here, you, beginning with you and the elders, to understand that when something like this happens and government acts, government is acting for Ghanaians, all Ghanaians. I came here because Ghanaians are having difficulties and are suffering. And it is my responsibility to try and help. Because if it's a question of counting who votes for me and who doesn't vote for me, I shouldn't be here, because you don't vote for me. But that is not my concern.
Well, that's President Akufo-Addo there. Already, reactions have been pouring in about the political statements made about, especially at this time, when the persons there are focused on just getting the health that they need, and the president talking about whether they voted for him or not. There's been a statement already out shortly on that. We will get into it. Let's get into business now, and Michael Obudu is standing by.
Hello there and welcome to the business segment here on Hot Edition. My name is Michael Obudu. Now, coming out, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta reveals that the domestic debt exchange program has been concluded. We have details of that and more coming up shortly. Well, let's now head straight into our first story now, as Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has revealed that the domestic debt exchange program has been concluded and government has begun negotiations with private creditors and Eurobond holders. Ken Ofori-Atta was speaking on the sidelines of the IMF spring meeting underway in Marrakesh in Morocco. We'll bring you the insight to that story shortly from Marrakesh. Well, we'll bring you that insert shortly. Now, away from that, President Akufo-Addo has urged financial sector leaders to enhance support for farmers, agriculture, and the private sector in general to boost the country's gross domestic product. At a presidential breakfast meeting in Accra, he observed that despite Ghana's status as the second largest economy in West Africa, its financial institutions provide minimal support to the agricultural sector. We'll hear now from the president.
Credit culture and the measures that we need to take to improve it. Yes, there are institutional arrangements that can definitely be ameliorated, improved, the way in which the courts deal with loan cases. But nevertheless, the poor credit culture is something that we need to look at very, very seriously in Ghana.
That was President Akufo-Addo. Let's now bring you an earlier insert from the finance minister.
This is but a tremendous success. We are now intensifying our efforts on negotiations with external bond holders and expect that significant progress will be made in the coming weeks. As you know, the system that we all have inherited is that the IMF requires that the official creditors submit positions on financing assurances and memorandum of understanding before the board can meet to be able to make onward decisions. And so we are caught in that. And then secondly, I think for us as a government and the nation, we also wanted to show the country's commitment to burden sharing in the debt restructuring that was going to be required to move us to 55% debt to GDP ratio. And I think we exhibited that very strongly. And the OCC has been responding quite well. And so we are now with the scenarios that we have now received very recently from external bondholder groups.
Well, that was Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta announcing there that the domestic debt exchange program has been concluded. Now, away from that, the Ghana Tourism Authority, GTA, has revealed that some 1,000 businesses in the country will be impacted by an enforcement exercise that will be implemented tomorrow. Speaking to the media during a press conference held earlier today, a deputy CEO of the authority, Eko Samson, stated that the exercise had become necessary to ensure that players in the hospitality industry are compliant with existing regulations and pay their respective levies.
There are two means to this exercise. The illegal units, those who do not have licenses. So they are not owners. Okay, so what we are going after them because they don't have operational licenses. So that's a different thing. And then also we have the tourism levy, which we have units that are also not paying. We have about 1,774 establishments that can be more are illegal operators. And that's what we are going to ensure that we adhere to the regulations and then also the Tourism Act 2011 Act 817.
So that was the Deputy CEO of the Ghana Tourism Authority, Eko Samson, speaking there. And that will be all for the business segment here on Hot Edition. For more business stories, please check out our website, 3news.com. My name is Michael Obodu. Thank you for listening. As always, please stay safe. Up next, the sports. Hello, good evening, and welcome to the sports segment here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. My name is Ore Kwampo, and we begin with the Ghana Premier League, where Michael Yeboah's quickfire brace and Emmanuel Enchi's thunderous strike in the space of 10 minutes was enough for Great Olympics to pick up all 3 points against Accra Lions, who have now suffered their second defeat of the season. That game just ended at the Accra Sports Stadium. But let's move into the camp of the Black Stars, who play later this week. And despite conceding 2 goals against Mexico, Black Stars goalkeeper trainer Richard Kinson was pleased with the performance of Lawrence Atizigi and says they would work on the mistakes ahead of the game against the United States of America. He was speaking to my colleague Thierry Nyan.
Especially he got very hard back passes, very difficult ones, but he was able to deal with it. And looking at his concentration and determination was very high. So we are going back to training grounds to correct some of the mistakes, and then in future we improve.
But do you also think that going into the game against USA, things will get better?
Yeah, sure. Because we Ghanaians, we know ourselves. I think we cannot lose 2 games. So I think the second game is going to be better.
Well, that was Richard Kinson speaking ahead of the game against the USA. That match will be played on Wednesday, in the early hours of Wednesday, around 12:30 a.m. That's around midnight. But let's do some more here, where Nigerian goalkeeper Francis Uzo has been under a lot of pressure and criticism after conceding avoidable goals during this international window, first against Saudi Arabia and then against Mozambique on Monday. Nigerian journalist Ayodeji believes it's time that the goalkeeper was dropped for the chance to be given to other players.
And our goalkeeping department is not particularly worst, but the problem is that the selectors, the coaching crew, have decided to persist with the most error-prone goalkeeper of 3 we have. Francis Uzo on his day is not a bad goalkeeper, but seems to make a lot of errors, and at this level of football, that is not acceptable. Look at the first goal he considered against Saudi Arabia in that friendly. For a goalkeeper who is 6'5", 6'6" tall, he should be dealing with that easy, but he parried it into his own net. Look at the goal he considered against Ghana in the World Cup qualifying playoffs in Abuja as well. So for some reasons, the coaching crew persists with him. At club level, Udo is second choice to a 35-year-old goalkeeper at Omonia Nicosia. He's yet to play 1 minute of club football this season, and we are in October. Maduka Okoye has just been recalled following his blunder at the last AFCON. He's gone on loan from Watford to Italy. He's not played 1 minute of football this year. Okoye has probably played 2 or 3 games in the last 2 years, And Adebayo Adeleye, who is the third goalkeeper in the team, he plays in Israel. He has played 5 games for his club this season. He's the one who is consistently playing for his club. But for some reasons, they don't seem to have the confidence to give him a chance.
Well, that was a sports journalist from Nigeria, Ayodeji, and that's how we wrap up Hot Edition sports segment. Up next is entertainment with a cover.
Thank you very much, Oriku, for those sports updates. Now let's get straight into the entertainment news segment here on Hot Edition. Achimota Secondary School has been crowned winners of the second edition of TV3's culinary contest Kitchen Wars. They beat competition from Tamale SHS, Holy Child and Tema Senior High School to emerge tops. Aside the bragging rights, the team won a 10,000 Ghana cedis cash prize, 3-month supply of products to the school, and gets to embark on an international trip as well.
It's been weeks of culinary hostilities between the various alumni groups in Ghana on TV3's Kitchen Wars. Season 2 of the cooking experience has been an exciting one as alumni groups strive for bragging rights. It was an energetic atmosphere at the Aviation Social Center as 4 schools, Holy Child SHS, Tamale SHS, Achimota SHS and Tema SHS, took a stand for the final showdown for the season. In the end, Achimota SHS were on top of their game as they secured the bragging rights as winner of the country's biggest cooking competition, Kitchen Wars. Aside the bragging rights, the team won the 10,000 cedis cash prize and 3-month supply of Gino products to their school.
What went into your preparations for this big one?
Oh, we came to the kitchen with no idea, mystery. It's just a mystery basket. So we got there and what we found in our basket, we created everything. We thank God for bringing us this far, for their skill and being the director of our kitchen. That was our plan, that was our secret.
Well, let's turn our attention to some other stories now where judges are still screening for the final list of Mentor 12 contestants. Selected participants from Takrady, Kumasi, Tamale joined their colleagues in Accra for the semi-finals auditions. 26 contestants in all made it for the boot camp.
The search for the next global music icon is on for the 12th season of TV3's Mentor. After weeks of nationwide auditions, judges are still screening for the final list of contestants. 26 participants from Tamale, Takrady, Kumasi joined their colleagues in Accra for a boot camp. From the singers to the rappers, the talents left no stone unturned as they proved to the judges one more time why they have to be part of this year's competition.
But now I take to see you dance just one more time. So they say dance for me, dance for me, dance for me, oh, oh. I never see.
Mentor will offer them an opportunity to project their music career. In the coming weeks, 16 contestants will be outdoors to officially begin this year's event. It's going to be another 13 weeks of exciting entertainment on Mentor.
Standing on stage right now, you can see our grand finalists, of which 16 of them will make the final cut. Which of these will be our contestants for the season 12 of TV3 Mentor? It indeed is a big deal. Make sure that you let your tweets go through so we see who you think should be in the final cut.
And finally, head of 3 Entertainment and Media, General Bella Mundi, who was crowned Female Young Achiever at the 8th Emmy Africa Awards, said she is committed to empowering young people and women with her awards. The affable presenter, who is also a passionate advocate for social causes and the founder of the Bella Mundi Foundation, spoke to AJ Sapong at the Grand Arena.
This year's Young Achiever Female Award goes to Bella Mundi.
And now it's a night of celebrating. Not only is our group CEO Woman of the Year, but also 3 Entertainment boss lady herself, Bella Mundi, is also a young female achiever. Congratulations, Bella.
Darling, thank you.
Now, first and foremost, now hearing your name called on that stage, getting up there and then receiving this award, describe those emotions for me.
I think that, again, because I've known about this, I was humbled but prepared to receive it. And for me, I received this on behalf of every young woman, and I said that on stage because it's beyond what I've done in the industry. It's about how I've impacted people. And so when my name was mentioned, I just looked back at all the young women and men who have been inspired by my journey, and I just said, thank you, God.
Biggest lesson you've learned over the course of your journey in the media space?
Don't doubt God. Don't doubt God. I had to unwillingly give up something. And little did I know that when I was being told to give that up, there was something bigger for me. And if I had not given that up, I probably wouldn't be on this stage at this point. And so that's my lesson. Don't ever doubt God. I doubted him so badly and I was willing to disobey, but I gave in, I acquiesced, and here I am today. So thank you, God.
Congratulations going out to the head of 3 Entertainment, Bella Mundi. And that ends it for the Entertainment News segment here on Hot Edition, powered by 3 Entertainment. My name is Akofa. Thanks for listening, and the 3FM Drive team continues.